In this video, I'm going to start modeling the rest of the hammerhead. I'm going to start by adjusting the vertices for this part here so that they line up more with this curve. So I'm going to right click, choose vertex, and start adjusting these with keeping an eye on what's happening here too. So start pulling out. Now this one needs to come up to the top corner here to start making the curve on the top here. So I'm going to move that up there, and then these two will need to move up and over, and this one need to move up and over. And I want these to be level with each other, so I'm going to go into the move tool, hold on X, and snap those to the grid so that they're level with each other. So something like this. And you can see that those are now starting to shape out that bit of a curve that exists at the top there, like that. All right, and then I can work on same things on the bottom here, so moving this over. This actually I think needs to go up a little bit. This can come down a little bit. And all right, so that is a good starting point. I am going to now select these two things and do Control H to hide them so I can see this a little bit better. So yeah, actually I can pull those two out a little bit more. And select those and scale them out a little bit more. So that looks pretty good. All right, so then I'm going to start working on the shape for the rest of this. And this is a bit of a complex shape. So, and if you notice, it kind of flares out as you get to the prongs here. So it's pretty straight going from here over and then starts to flare. So what I'm actually going to do to be able to pretty quickly and easily get the shape for the side of the face and get good edge flow in doing it, I'm going to start by creating a basic shape that I'm going to use as a live object and then use quad draw to actually draw the quads for the side here. So I'm going to start with a polygon cube, and I'm going to move that up. And I want to scale it up so that it is basically the width and height with a little bit of wiggle room on each side. So something like that will do. And then on the top view, I want to make sure that it is the width of the top here. So like that. And then I'm going to add in an edge loop here because that's about where it starts to flare out. And then I'll select these vertices and scale them up a little bit for that flare out. Then on these faces, those vertices, I'll scale them in so they're the correct width. Actually, let's do that for the whole thing. Now go back here. Let's actually add in another edge loop like right along here. And then these I'll scale in to get the correct width in that direction. All right, so now I'm going to go into object mode and I'm going to go modify, make live, and this has now become a live object. So I can come into quad draw, and anything I draw now will stick to this surface. So with quad draw, you start by creating 4 points by clicking with your left mouse button. Then hold down Shift and click, and that will create your first face. And you'll see in this view that the face is sticking to the surface. So basically go through and draw out some real basic geometry, matching up the profile of my reference and trying to keep the geometry fairly even. And at this point, I'm going to add an edge loop, and I do that by holding down Control and then clicking where I want the edge loop. And I can zoom in here, and I can pull that out to create that little bit of point. And then I will start making some additional edge loops. And as you make points, you can move them around just by clicking on them and adjusting them. And you can just keep an eye on what's going on over here. And that edge will eventually be able to meet up with that edge. So as I'm doing this, I want to make sure that I'll be able to have the vertices meet up. And if you want to do a quick, just having all of these edges get extruded out, I can hold down Tab and then hold my middle mouse and drag down, and that will move all of those points. So I can get something like that. And I can do that one more time. So Tab, middle mouse, drag down. And again, tab, middle mouse, drag down. So you can see now that I have something that looks like that. So that basic profile is worked out there of a basic geometry. Now I can turn off quad draw, click in an empty space, and then go modify, make not live, and I now have this quad draw surface and the actual shape here, which I'm going to do Control H and hide that so that I can start working on these together. So what I want to do now is just take a look at this and make sure that my geometry is pretty clean and lined up, which it is. So I want to select these two so I can combine them. So I'll select both of them and then do Mesh Combine. So Maya is now looking at this as one mesh. So now I can use Target Weld and make sure that Merge To is set to target and be in vertex mode. And what I want to do is select a vertex and then drag to the one that I want to merge it to. So very quickly, those two meshes will be merged together. In this case, this one actually needed to be merged to that. So something like that. And this is a little bit flat here, so I'm going to pull some of these out a little bit so that it gets a little bit more of the shape that of the curve. And with all of these points, if I want to kind of average them out a little bit more so they're a little more even, I can select these all and then go Edit Mesh, Average Vertices, and you can see that kind of just averaged them out so that they're a little bit more even and evenly distributed. So something like that. All right. So now I want to start thinking about the shape that makes up the prongs. And if you look at the reference, the top of it is fairly flat, but it angles down a little bit this way. But the bottom of it has this kind of gradated angle that it goes from thicker to thinner and this nice little curve here. So we need to make sure that we get that into the shape. So if I start working on this, right, this vertex right about here is where I want to start the actual angling out of the top part of the mesh. So if I come around and select all of those edges and go to extrude, and I want to extrude these in world mode, so I'm going to click on this little icon here, and that will allow me to extrude these in world mode. And I can do something like that. So I'm starting to get that overall shape of the prong. And then I want to start thinking about the angle that gets created here. So I'm going to start adjusting these vertices. I'm actually going to do it by selecting all of those and then use my rotate tool and rotate it like that, and then move them over like that. Just move that one just a little bit, and then this I'll move back a little bit to start kind of that curved shape. So I'm starting to get that. And then I will select each of these edges across from each other and do a bridge, and I'm going to add one division so that there's an edge that can match up over from here to here, and then go to target weld, go to vertices, and target weld from there to there. So those are now points that are all angled correctly. And you can see that I'm starting to get a bit of that angle there. Although I think it actually needs to be a little bit more pronounced. All right, and then I am going to extrude out these edges. So I'll go to extrude and extrude over like that. And just pull this down a little bit. And then go back into vertex mode, target weld, and target weld that to that. And I'm going to bring this vertex up. And I'm actually going to bring all of these over just a little bit. So that they're more like that. All right. Then I can use target weld and target weld that to that. All right. So next thing we want to think about is mirroring these two across. So I'm going to actually delete this half of that. And don't worry about the fact that it deletes the ones at the front. We'll take care of that in a little while. And then I want to make sure that my pivot point is right on the origin line. So I'm going to hit the insert key. I'm going to go hold down X for grid snapping, and I'm going to snap it right to this origin and then hit insert. And now my pivot point for that mesh is right along the origin in the Z axis. So then I can go to mesh, mirror, and over here I want to make sure that my axis is set to Z. And I also want to have do not merge turned on because I want to add in geometry myself there. So I now have something that looks like this, which is getting closer to what we want. So now I can come in here and select these two edges and do bridge. Oops. Do bridge. And I'm going to add in one division. And then I'm going to move those back a little bit. And I am now going to select those two vertices and scale them in. And then I can select these and pull them back to create that shape of the underneath of the something that looks like that. All right, then up here, I can select those two edges and do a bridge and add in enough divisions so that I can meet up with these pieces. So, actually, no, let's just extrude out. So we'll actually bridge across these ones. So we'll do bridge and one division. And then we can go into vertex, target weld, go into wireframe so it's easier to see where I'm welding to, like that. So I now have that top of the mesh done. Then I can go back into edge mode, select those two edges, bridge, hit G for bridge here, and start doing that across the whole thing. So I could select all of these edges across from each other, and then do bridge and one division, and then go back into vertex mode and target weld from there to there. And this vertex, I think I'll just bring up a little bit like that. And these, I think I'll scale in a little. So we start to have that nice, even, smooth taper. Alright, then we can do the same thing along the front here. So I'll select these and do a bridge and add in 3 divisions, and then switch to vertex mode, target weld, and target weld those together. And these kind of, whoops, will come out a little bit as it makes that transition down. All right, so I'm going to get out of wireframe unshaded. I'm going to take a look at this. Now I'm going to go to mesh display. Right now you can see a lot of faceting here, which wasn't what I want, so I'm going to go to mesh display and soften edge. Whoops. And obviously getting some weird shading artifacts, which we will take care of in a little bit. Right now Notice this little line, that probably means that these vertices are not merged. So yeah, those aren't merged. So I'm going to select this object and then I click the Merge Vertex button. And since those vertices are right on top of each other, they will now be merged. So now I can go Mesh Display, Soften Edge, and those will be softened. Then I'm going to come in to my front here and go into edge mode and do the same thing we did before. Bridge. And actually what I'm going to do is then do multi-cut right in the big front here, and then I can do bridges across like that. And same thing down here. All right. So next up is to select all of those vertices and do an extrude in, and I just want to do it a little bit like that. And then I want to just select these vertices and scale them a little in each direction so that that is more square, like that. All right, so that's the basic shape, and I can do Control-Shift-H, and it will now show this box, which I can get rid of, so I'll just delete that. And then I'm just going to go Display, Show All to show my other parts. So at this point, I want to scale all of these in a little bit so that they fit better with the size of the top. Oops, I didn't want those selected. Move that up a little bit. And then I'm going to do grid snapping again. So X and set it something like that. All right. So we now have the basic shapes of everything. In this one, I still need to go through and set it up so that I have bevels and reinforcement edge loops to make it actually look hard where it needs to be, and smooth where it doesn't need to be, so that it will be good for smoothing. And I will do that in the next video.